Let me say something before we even go too far in this. You are not lazy. You are not weak. You are not broken beyond repair. You are tired, mentally, soulfully, deeply tired. The kind of tired you don't sleep off in a night. The kind of tired that creeps into your spirit when you've been surviving more than living. But people see you sitting still, not moving fast, not producing, not performing, and they label it laziness. They say you just need to try harder, but they don't see that you've been trying just to breathe. They don't know the noise inside your mind. They don't feel the invisible war you fight just to get out of bed, just to put on a brave face, just to show up. See, the world will try to guilt you into thinking your slow pace is failure, but maybe you're not falling behind. Maybe your soul is just trying to catch up with all the battles your body pretended to win. This ain't a speech to shame you. This is a word to remind you that even in your stillness, God sees. Even in your silence, He hears. Even in your low moments, He's still declaring high purpose over you. I need you to lean in, not for me, but for the part of you that's been silenced, dismissed, misunderstood, the part of you that needs permission to rest, to heal, to breathe again without apology. You're not lazy, and you're tired, and you don't need fixing. You need truth. You need restoration. You need God to touch the places that coffee and motivation can't reach. Stay with me. Let's unlearn the lie. Let's stop mistaking fatigue for failure. And let's walk together toward freedom. People will look at your stillness and call it laziness. They'll look at your unmade bed, your unread emails, your quiet spirit, and say, you just need more discipline. But what they don't see is the weight, the invisible weight, the kind that doesn't show up on a scale, but settles heavy on your shoulders, behind your eyes, deep in your chest. You're not lazy. You're carrying things no one knows about. You've been holding together pieces of yourself while still trying to hold up the people around you. You've been strong for so long that now your body is asking, can I rest? Your mind is saying, can I pause? And even when you do pause, even when you try to breathe, the guilt creeps in. Like you owe productivity an apology. Like you're only as worthy as what you produce. But God never called you to be a machine. He called you to be His. And He knows what your soul is carrying, even when the world keeps telling you to get it together. You've been overthinking conversations, replaying decisions, wrestling with doubts, constantly at war with yourself behind the scenes. And that kind of internal battle, that kind of noise, it drains you. That's not laziness. That's weariness from a fight that never had a finish line. You're not sleeping all day because you're lazy. You're sleeping because your mind has been running all night, anxious, rehearsing failures, fearing the future, questioning your worth. It's not laziness. It's exhaustion, mental, emotional, and spiritual. The truth is, we don't call it what it is because rest is a foreign language to us. We know how to grind, how to press, how to show up, even when we're bleeding inside, but we don't know how to admit we're empty. So instead, we hide behind phrases like, I'm fine, or I'm just a little tired, while inside we're screaming, I'm barely holding on. That's not weakness. That's honesty trying to find its voice. You're not lazy. You're layered. You're complex. You're carrying grief, trauma, stress, shame, fear, all while trying to live like it's not affecting you. But it is affecting you. And that's okay. That doesn't make you a failure. That makes you real, human, and worthy of compassion, especially from yourself. You know what's wild? We give other people grace for being tired. If someone else needs to step back, we understand. If someone else breaks down, we rush to comfort them, but when it comes to us, we beat ourselves up for needing a moment. We talk to ourselves with words we'd never use on a friend, and yet God calls us to love our neighbor as ourselves. Not more than, not less than, as. But how can you love others well if you're constantly neglecting the love your own soul needs? You don't need to be pushed harder, you need to be held. You don't need a louder alarm clock, you need a quieter mind. And the truth is that kind of rest doesn't come from canceling plans or taking a nap. It comes from releasing the weight, from saying, God, I'm tired and I don't want to pretend I'm not anymore. It comes from recognizing that your limits are not sins, your exhaustion is not rebellion, and your rest is not laziness. It's stewardship of your mind, of your spirit, of your body. So if today all you can do is breathe, then breathe deeply. If all you can do is whisper, then let your whisper be a prayer. Don't carry shame for your stillness, carry peace in it. Because even in your rest, you are not falling behind. You are being restored. Mental exhaustion doesn't always announce itself with sirens. Sometimes it shows up quiet, like forgetting what day it is, like staring at a screen with no energy to move, like not answering texts, not because you don't care, but because the weight of responding feels like a mountain. People see that and they say, you're slacking. They say you're falling off. But what they don't understand is you've been running on empty for so long that even your soul has started to whisper, I can't keep doing this. You start to question everything, your discipline, your calling, even your faith. You start to ask yourself, why can't I just get up and do it? And that voice in your head starts twisting. Tiredness into guilt. It tells you that you're not enough, that you're wasting time, that you're behind. But can I tell you something? That's not God speaking. That's pressure. That's culture. That's shame trying to dress itself up like accountability. Mental exhaustion doesn't mean you failed. It means you've been functioning in overload. Too much thinking, too much carrying, too much performing. You've been trying to be everything for everyone, but somewhere along the way, you stopped listening to what you needed. And when your mind is overworked, your spirit starts to shut down. You don't dream like you used to. You don't feel like you used to. You move through the day like a ghost of who you once were, and then you wonder, what's wrong with me? But there's nothing wrong with you. Your body and mind are sending signals, God-given alerts, trying to protect you from breaking down. That sense of fatigue isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. And when you ignore those signals, you don't become stronger, you become numb. And numbness is dangerous because it convinces you to keep pretending, to keep performing, to keep pushing past what your soul is screaming to say, I need rest, I need silence, I need to not be needed for just a moment. But the world won't give you that space. It won't tell you to rest. The world will guilt you for sitting still, for sleeping in, for saying no. It'll reward your burnout with applause and punish your boundaries with distance. That's why you need discernment. Because every open door is not from God, and every invitation isn't your assignment. Sometimes your next act of obedience is not to go, but to stop. Not to speak, but to be silent. Not to push harder, but to be still and know that He is still in control, even when you're too tired to keep the show going. Mental exhaustion can feel like failure because it makes you feel stuck. But being stuck doesn't mean you're useless. It means you've outgrown the pace that's been killing you. You were never meant to run forever. Even the strongest must stop and be refilled. Even the most gifted need grace. You don't pour from an empty cup and expect it to overflow. Let go of the idea that you always have to be on. Let go of the pressure to perform strength when you feel fragile. God isn't impressed with your hustle. He's moved by your surrender. And sometimes surrender looks like silence, like Sabbath, like saying, Lord, I don't feel okay, but I trust you'll hold me while I heal. So if today your only victory is that you got out of bed, then that's enough. If the only thing you did was survive, that's enough. Don't call that failure, call it faith. Because even in your lowest moments, God is still working through your stillness. One of the most dangerous things we do is compare our capacity today to who we were in a different season. You remember when you used to wake up early, hit every goal, check off every box, pray without hesitation, smile without faking? You remember that version of yourself, and now that everything feels harder, slower, heavier, you start to ask, what happened to me? But let me ask you something deeper. Why do you believe you owe the world the same version of yourself every day, as if life hasn't shifted, as if pain hasn't shaped you, as if your current season doesn't require a different kind of strength? You are not lazy, you are healing. You are not lost, you are learning how to be present with a heart that's been through storms. Healing takes energy, processing takes strength, and growth is silent before it's visible. But here's the thing, when your soul is fighting to repair what trauma tried to destroy, you don't always look productive to people. You don't always sound powerful. And that's okay. The struggle with mental tiredness is that it doesn't make sense to people unless they've felt it. They don't understand how you can sleep all night and still wake up exhausted. They don't know what it's like to walk through the day smiling on the outside while your mind is replaying every failure, every wound, every lie you've been told about who you are, and still somehow you're showing up. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not loudly, but you're here. You're breathing. You're trying. That's not weakness. That's a quiet kind of bravery. But see, we've been taught that strength has to look like action. We think if we're not moving, we're not growing. If we're not posting, we're not relevant. If we're not constantly producing, then we're behind. But real strength, God-breathed, soul-rooted strength, is often hidden. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't demand applause. It sits in silence and says, Lord, if all I can do today is be still, I'll trust you in my stillness. It's hard though, because silence can feel like failure. When your body slows down and your mind shuts off, you start thinking you're giving up. But what if that stillness is where God speaks the loudest? What if the pause you're forced into is a divine strategy to keep you from crashing into a wall you didn't see coming? You want to be active, but God wants you to be aware. You want to run, but He wants you to heal. And healing isn't fast. It isn't clean. It doesn't follow the timeline other people think you should be on. Healing looks like telling the truth about how tired you are. It looks like not hiding your process. It looks like saying, no, I'm not okay right now, and trusting that God still calls you His, even in that confession. You are not lazy for not being at your best. You're growing in ways nobody can see. Don't minimize your process because it doesn't match someone else's pace. Don't let the pressure to bounce back rob you of the grace to sit still and recover. God isn't asking you to move at the speed of culture. He's asking you to move at the speed of truth, and truth takes time to settle in your spirit. So if your strength today looks like tears or naps or sitting in quiet prayer, let that be enough. You don't have to prove your worth through performance. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is simply not give up. Sometimes the only thing louder than our exhaustion is our silence. We don't talk about it, but we carry it, and we carry it well. We go through our days performing strength while privately drowning in fatigue. But what we really need isn't more doing, it's more honesty, more space to be real. Because you can't heal what you pretend isn't hurting. And pretending to be okay doesn't make you holy. It just makes you hidden. But God is not moved by your perfection. He's moved by your honesty. And the moment you stop performing strength and start confessing your need, that's where breakthrough begins. That's where the deep work of renewal starts to happen, not in the hustle, but in the honesty. In the stillness, in the moment where you finally admit, I'm not okay. I'm not lazy. I'm just mentally tired and I need grace. But grace is hard to receive when shame has been your teacher. When every time you've paused, someone made you feel guilty for it. When rest is seen as weakness and boundaries are seen as selfish. So now, every time you try to sit down and just be, your mind starts racing. You think about the deadlines, the dishes, the expectations, and in that noise, you forget you're allowed to stop. You forget that you're human. You forget that even Jesus rested. We don't like to talk about the rest of Jesus. We talk about the miracles, the walking on water, the feeding of the 5,000. But do we talk about how he withdrew? How he stepped away to pray? How he slept on a boat during a storm while everyone else panicked? Not because he didn't care, but because he knew that rest was not rebellion, it was wisdom. And I believe some of us are running from rest because we think it'll make us irrelevant. We think if we step back, we'll lose our place. If we unplug, we'll fall behind. But how can you lose something God gave you? What he has for you doesn't disappear when you stop to breathe. His promises don't expire when you take a break. If anything, your ability to receive them is sharpened when you're finally quiet enough to hear him clearly. Mental tiredness is not solved by doing more. It's solved by being present, by letting go of the pressure to prove your worth through constant motion. Sometimes God's greatest invitation is into stillness, into surrender, into the sacred space of not yet. That space where you're not where you were, but you're not where you're going either. That uncomfortable middle ground where the temptation is to force progress, but the wisdom is to wait. That waiting is not punishment. It's preparation. It's where your soul gets recalibrated, where your mind gets renewed, where you learn the difference between ambition and assignment. And once you start moving from assignment instead of anxiety, that's when you stop burning out and start building what actually lasts. You're not weak for needing space. You're wise. You're not broken for taking time. You're brave. Because it takes courage to stop when everything around you tells you to keep going. It takes trust to believe that God is still working even when you're not. So breathe. Unclench your fists. Lay down your guilt. And let grace do what hustle never could. You don't need to do more to be more. You just need to remember who holds you when you're tired. And trust that he's not done yet.